The radio is a platform that goes wherever air goes. I am traveling to hear the stories of lives transformed through the airwaves of Adventist World Radio. We will journey from the country of Madagascar to the beautiful island of Palawan in the Philippines. Then we will travel to the charming country of Argentina. Follow along on this exciting adventure to see how God is changing hearts and transforming lives around the globe. In a country steeped with tradition, storytelling and oral learning remain an integral part of the culture. This makes radio an ideal avenue to reach the people, and I'm excited to hear how God is touching lives through the airwaves. I'm in Madagascar, and this is AWR 360.
My name is Fidi, and I am blind. My mother was also blind, and we lived together. She passed away recently.
Fidi lives in the hill country of Madagascar, 4 hours from the capital city of Antananarivo. The landscape is bare except for mud huts and green gardens that dot the dry hills. Despite being blind, Fidi's mother did fine embroidery and crocheting, while Fidi worked in the fields growing vegetables to sell. Fidi was not always blind, and as a child he loved listening to the radio. He came across an AWR broadcast those many years ago, but it was not interesting to him at that time. When he became blind at the age of 18, this Christian radio program came back to his remembrance, and in the darkness, the words now comforted him.
I especially liked the Bible programs, and also the one with helpful farming tips. I put into practice everything I heard.
Fidi's mother also listened to the AWR broadcast, and together they were convicted by the truths they heard.
We didn't want to keep what we heard on the radio to ourselves, and began sharing with friends and neighbors as well, inviting them to join us in listening to the AWR broadcasts.
Then one special day, a team from the General Conference came and picked up Fidi and his mother. They were brought to a church, and during a gathering to celebrate the work of AWR in Madagascar, this precious mother-son duo were baptized. His mother has sadly passed away, and Fidi now lives alone, but he continues to listen daily to his favorite radio station. His life is simple yet complex for someone that cannot see. Fidi makes his own meals, washes his clothes, and keeps his mud hut tidy. He earns a meager living by helping a neighbor pan for gold in a nearby stream. Recently, Fidi began the process of building a new home, and he made all the bricks himself, using a technique he learned on the radio program. Fidi is the only known Adventist within many miles of his home, and he worships alone every Sabbath. But thanks to AWR, he has a church family.
I am blind, but AWR is my light in the darkness. Through it, I can see.
This story reminds me of the verse in Isaiah 42 that says, "I will bring the blind by a way they did not know. I will lead them in paths they have not known, and I will make darkness light before them, and crooked places straight. These things I will do for them, and not forsake them." Thank you for your support of Adventist World Radio. The Lord is using it to pierce the darkness of this world, bringing light to all people. Together we are making waves from broadcast to baptism. This is AWR 360.
As Christians, our family is much larger than our immediate biological family. In fact, we have brothers and sisters that live in more than 200 countries all around the world. We want to remember them in our estate plan. We can help you with that process. Just call 800-337-4279 toll-free or log on to awr.org.
Follow me from Madagascar, halfway around the world, to hear how the Lord is using Adventist World Radio in Palawan in the Philippines. Home to some of the happiest people on the planet, the Philippines consists of 7,107 islands, making it the second largest archipelago in the world. Unlike their Southeast Asian neighbors who practice Buddhism, 90% of Filipinos consider themselves Christians, making it the only Asian country that is predominantly Christian. But because of its Spanish colonial influence, 80% of the population claim the Roman Catholic faith, along with its man-made traditions and dogmas. Come with me as I discover how God is using radios and willing hands to tear down the traditions of men and transform lives. The island of Palawan has been my home for the past 2 weeks. Named one of the top islands in the world thanks to jaw-dropping natural beauty, it boasts incredible white sand beaches and one of the largest underground rivers in the world. The beauty of nature and the precious people here make it an easy place to love. But even more beautiful is the way God is using Adventist World Radio on this island. Nearly 20 years ago, a pastor tried his hand at radio broadcasting. The project didn't last long, and it was cast aside as a failure. What changed? 1 year ago, AWR came here, bringing a vision far greater than radio alone. Bible-based doctrinal messages would be preached, and the listeners connected with local churches. Evangelistic meetings would be held, and follow-up and discipleship take place. The radio would be the platform, the springboard for something much bigger. The local leaders and lay members were excited about the plan, and soon 7 humble stations were born, with 18 volunteers coming together to help. Untrained, yet with willing hands to be used in service for the Lord, these dedicated people gave of their time and resources to spread the message. As I traveled around to the different stations and met these faithful volunteers, my heart was touched with the self-sacrifice I saw. One family has a spindly makeshift radio tower in their front yard. Next to it, a more permanent one stands half-built beside, waiting on funds for completion. For them, it's a family ministry, and the wife tears up as she tells us how she and her husband come out and pray for hours at the tower. They had no previous training in radio broadcasting, and at times the work is daunting. But together with their 3 daughters and neighborhood friend, they devote countless hours a day to creating and broadcasting messages of hope. Even the littlest one uses her precious voice to sing praises to Jesus. From their humble tower and home studio, this family has seen 50 precious souls baptized, and that is after only 1 year of operation. Another volunteer broadcaster is winning souls through ice cream. Every day before heading to the radio station, June completes a laborious 3-hour process to make his delicious dessert by hand. Not only does he sell it in front of the radio station, but as a prize for answering the question of the day correctly, he gives away free ice cream to the first 3 callers. He too is a self-taught radio broadcaster and is sacrificing much of his time and means to the work of God. But the reward is sweeter than ice cream, and June smiles big as he introduces us to souls won for the kingdom through the witness of his radio programs. After 1 year of daily broadcasting Bible-based programs, a reaping event called Palawan for Christ was planned. This would start with a free health clinic in Puerto Princesa and nightly evangelistic meetings to follow. In preparation, AWR began promoting the health clinic and inviting the listeners to attend one of the many meetings to be held over the island. The response was phenomenal, and the clinic a bigger success than anticipated.
At the Mega Clinic, we served in 3 days over 8,000 patients. It was incredible. There was only 300 volunteers. We had doctors and medical people from across the world, really, that came to serve. We were giving out literature to them and inviting them to come to the Palawan for Christ evangelistic meetings.
So many other religions and so many other spiritual concepts in the world and belief systems leave people with more confusion than they do provide them answers for their questions in life. And I just feel like our gospel is so practical and so real and so understandable. And I'm so much more attracted to it after having preached this series than I even was before.
Yeah, I've been questioning whether God actually wanted me to be here up until about 3 days ago or 2 days ago. I preached on the topic of baptism. At the end of that sermon, I made a call to baptism and 3 people put their hands up, and it's awesome to know that God can use me, somebody that's never spoken up in front before, ever. And I was able to, through God's help, help people to make a decision to live for Him.
I guess, for me, coming on this experience and preaching these messages, it's been 2 main things. Really exciting, just seeing God use me, and I feel very, very honored in a sense, but at the same time, it's very humbling.
This trip will probably inspire me to just recognize and not take for granted all the blessings that I do have in my life, and certainly with personal visitation and them listening to AWR, there's a number of people who've made a decision for baptism.
A poor family living on the outskirts of town had heard about the upcoming events on the radio. Their home had been a place of fighting and unrest, and a pastor was sent to visit. Through prayer, a sweet time of reconciliation was had, and peace returned to their humble home after many years of discord. This pastor again invited them to the health clinic and upcoming evangelistic meetings, and a few days later, the crippled father was one of the thousands seen at the clinic. With tears in her eyes, one of the daughters expressed her heartfelt gratitude for the help her father received at the clinic, and also for AWR and the messages of hope that have changed their home. This dear family has been attending one of the nightly evangelistic meetings and has decided to be baptized. And that is the circle we long to see, from broadcast to baptism. For 2 weeks all across this beautiful island, evangelistic meetings have been taking place, conducted primarily by the lay people from the U.S. and Australia. These brave evangelists are testaments to the powerful concept that God can use anyone.
It's been really exciting to work with each of our speakers, and I found out that over half of our speakers actually had never done any evangelism before. And so this was something that was very terrifying for them, but I'm so proud of them because they've worked really hard, they've studied every day, they've been out there preaching every night, and I have seen their lives transformed.
So when we preached on baptism, it actually was 6 people that came up. And I was thinking, wow, Lord, 6 people. And I was thinking it would be perfect. It was 7. And as the program ended, God was really convicting my heart that maybe I should think about rebaptism. And as it started to rain after the program, I realized that I'm probably that 7th person that God is calling for baptism. And now I'm really just revived and really want to go back and study the Word even more and really go into more detail of the things that I've shared here and see where God can open up opportunities to share with people back home now.
One of the things that excites me most about this event has been in the lives of the speakers. While we're here to preach and outreach to the people in this area, God works through us and He's changing our hearts as well.
I believe Adventist World Radio programming here in Palawan is going to be really vital at nurturing these new members and continuing to reaffirm these doctrinal truths that they have learned, nurturing them in their relationships and this new way of life that they are now experiencing.
An ingenious thing being done here in Palawan is modifying radios to only receive one channel, AWR. We witnessed this procedure take place at a little shop by the side of the road. Once equipped with just one channel, these radios are given to families in need.
The radio here in Palawan, we have found out, has been so successful. Just since January of this year, there has been over 1,000 baptisms just from the radio.
As I prepare to head home, I can't help but think of the eternal impact the radio is having and of all the precious souls who committed their lives to Christ through baptism this weekend. There are many more who still need to hear our Bible-based programs, and AWR has plans to open 7 more radio stations, enabling our message to cover more of this beautiful island. Please pray for the many volunteers who are working tirelessly to make these radio broadcasts a success. Thank you for your generous support of Adventist World Radio. Through your heartfelt prayers and donations, our brothers and sisters can keep the fire of evangelism going here in Palawan.
I grew up in Indiana and I've been a farmer all my life. My father, every time we'd plant a field, when we got through, we'd always kneel down and have prayer that we'd done our part, now the Lord would do His. And He always come through. After praying about it, my wife and I decided to do a gift annuity through Adventist World Radio. It goes to people that normally is not going to hear it. And that's what our Three Angels message is all about, to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. When you're a farmer, you don't have a retirement plan. It was a good way to supplement our retirement. It's been a blessing to us, and I know it's going to be a blessing to those others around the world.
Join us on Mount Carmel in Israel for a powerful reminder of who we serve. Hi, I'm Cammie with AWR 360. I'm on the top of Mount Carmel, where God showed His power through Elijah's faithfulness as an example to all of us. Outnumbered, hunted, and blamed for the drought, this is where Elijah stood firm for God. Who do you serve? He asked. As the priests danced and tried to start the fire themselves, they were left in shame, for their gods were made of sticks and stones. All eyes were on Elijah as he poured water onto the stones. Wet stones. Only God could set fire to that. As Elijah prayed his humble prayer, it was answered with such a sight that all were impressed. Who do you serve? We serve a risen Savior, but what are we doing for our Lord? If we stay silent, many will never hear the wonderful news of our God. We here at AWR invite you to stand with us for the Lord. Adventist World Radio is reaching the unreached, and with your support, there's no limit to where it can go. Because truly, there are no walls, no borders, and no limits with AWR 360. Join me as I'm leaving Israel to head halfway around the world to hear how God is working in Argentina. More time is spent listening to the radio in this country than any other country in the world. Come with me to Argentina as I discover how Adventist World Radio is touching lives with the everlasting gospel. The city of Cordoba, Argentina, is full of rich colonial heritage, towering Gothic cathedrals, and quaint streets lined with shops and cafes. 1.3 million Argentinians call this city home, making it the second largest urban center in the country. Today I have come to meet Andres Coria, who lives just outside the heart of town. Andres lives in a modest home and even owns a small shop next door, where he sells basic goods and food items to the neighborhood. He may live a seemingly happy and peaceful life today, but as he begins to tell me his story, I realize that this was not always the case.
My life was falling apart. Cigarettes and alcohol consumed my days and my wallet. I would awake every morning craving alcohol. My hands would be shaking until I get a drink. My wife couldn't stand my drinking and smoking. She wouldn't have anything to do with me. I would tell myself, when my son is born, I would not smoke anymore. I will change my life. But no matter how much I tried, I simply could not change, even after our son was born.
Sometimes, when Andres was responsible for buying groceries, he would come home with only packs of cigarettes for himself.
My life continued to get worse. I was now smoking up to 60 cigarettes a day. Things got so bad that I began to contemplate ending my life.
One day, Andres confided in a friend about his need for change. The friend gave him a radio and suggested he listen to a certain Christian station. Andres gratefully accepted the radio and excitedly began to listen to the broadcast. But it wasn't long before he became bored and began looking for a more interesting channel. He tried many different ones, but when he came to 92.9, something caused him to stop. It was the Adventist World Radio station called Nuevo Tiempo.
I was immediately captivated by the voice I would later learn was Pastor Ponce. He spoke words that filled my soul. My heart was touched by the Bible messages. A few days later, as I was again listening to the radio station, they announced that Nuevo Tiempo was providing free Bible studies for their listeners. I decided I wanted to do them.
Little did he know that this decision would forever change his life. Once Andres received the lessons and began to study the Bible, a sense of peace he had never experienced before came over him. God was slowly working a transformation in his life, but this was only the beginning. One day, Andres heard an announcement for a free 5-day stop smoking course. Even though he had tried on several occasions to quit, he had not yet been able to give up his smoking habit. Perhaps this was his chance. He followed the program perfectly, drinking lots of water and eating only fruits and vegetables to help his body detox from the nicotine.
By God's grace, not only did I stop smoking the first day, but I never took a drink of alcohol ever again.
But God wasn't through with Andres yet. He was convicted that God wanted him to make changes in his business as well. His friends thought he was crazy when he shared his plan to stop selling cigarettes and alcohol in his shop. But Andres believes God has blessed his business in a special way since making this change. He has even begun to share Adventist literature with his customers.
To say it simply, Nuevo Tiempo Radio saved my life. Through his messages, I found peace and happiness. I found a family of believers. Everything about me has changed. My way of thinking, my way of dressing, my way of living. Thanks to Adventist World Radio, I am a new man in Christ.
As I listen to Andres' story, I cannot help but think of how heaven is rejoicing over this home. We say our goodbyes and part ways, realizing we may never meet again on this earth. But yet I rejoice in the hope that one day soon we will again meet Andres and the thousands of other listeners around the world whose hearts have been touched by the work of Adventist World Radio.
Across the globe, there are millions living in difficult-to-reach places where missionaries cannot go. North Africa, the Middle East, China, North Korea, and many more. It is into these very countries that AWR's broadcasts are penetrating every single day from our strategic network of shortwave, AM, FM, and internet stations. So how can you help spread the gospel in these difficult-to-reach places? Here are 2 practical ways. First, pray. Prayer is the key in the hand of faith that can unlock heaven's storehouse. And second, visit awr.org, where you can help to expand the reach of AWR's broadcasts by your generous donations. Thank you for joining us in hastening Jesus' soon coming by your needed prayers and support. Until next time, this is AWR 360.